Hello there, Calling Up community, and welcome to Understanding Microaggressions. Microaggression is a concept that psychiatrist and Harvard University professor Chester M. Pierce, he developed in 1970 to describe insults, dismissals that he regularly witnessed non-Black Americans inflicting on African Americans. And the term today now has a more inclusive scope. It refers to gender, disability, and the microaggressions that other marginalized communities experience. I'm a big fan of psychologist Daryl Wing Sue's work on this. He defines microaggressions as brief, everyday exchanges that send denigrating messages to certain individuals because of their group membership. Let's repeat that. Let's repeat Dr. Daryl Wing Sue's definition of microaggressions. Brief, everyday exchanges that send denigrating messages to certain individuals because of their group membership. So to get a little more detailed, this is sourced from Psychology Today. So microaggressions are everyday verbal, nonverbal, environmental slights, snubs, or insults, whether intentional or unintentional. Intent is different than impact. And these verbal, nonverbal, environmental actions, they communicate hostile, derogatory, or negative messages to target persons based solely upon their marginalized group membership. And in many cases, these messages may invalidate the group identity or the experiential reality of the target person. It demeans them on a personal and or group level. It communicates to them that they're lesser human beings. It suggests that they do not belong with the majority group. They threaten, they intimidate, they relegate them to an inferior status and treatment. So that's what microaggressions are. Now, what do they look like in the real world? Well, I think it's useful to break them up with some different definitions. So there are different types of microaggressions. You have the micro-assault. Now, the micro-assault, it's the biggest, it's the most explicitly violent type of microaggression. They're often deliberate with intentional impact. They can be subtle, but they usually are not subtle. And they will often take place when the perpetrator is anonymous, like supported by peers around them. And or they know that they can do the negative action without there being any type of repercussions for them. Micro-assaults take place online and in real life. So when someone, like a troll, is insulting and a threatening online, that's a micro-assault. When the female waitress is slapped on the butt by the male patron, that's a micro-assault. She can't go to the cops and be like, I've been assaulted. She doesn't even have a bruise, but she's been assaulted. It's a micro-assault. When a black person, walking down the street, when a white person in a car just shouts a slur at a black person walking down the street, and then the white person just quickly drives away. Or even the white person throws something, deliberately missing, but throws something at the person on the street. That person of color has just experienced a micro-assault. It's a microaggression, and you would call that a micro-assault. Now, you could have a micro-insult. Micro-insults are a little different. They're a little trickier to identify, frankly. They're the most common. Sometimes they sound like a compliment, and sometimes the person is meaning to be complimentary. They don't mean to be expressing this negative thing that they're expressing. So examples of micro-insults. When Joe Biden complimented President Barack Obama by calling him the first black person articulate enough to be a front runner for president. And I'm sure that many people of color have experienced the micro-insult of being referred to as articulate. When cisgender personality Katie Couric asked transgender actress Laverne Cox to describe her genitals on television. When an able-bodied person speaks to a disabled person, like it's in a wheelchair, as if they're a baby or slow. I've experienced that one a lot. And can I just tell you, it's wacky being told I'm incredibly articulate, impressively articulate, and also having people talk to me like I'm a child. So these are different types of micro-invalidations. And I'm getting all of these from the website Sailing Rough Waters. I'm a big fan of their list of examples because I found that of all of the resources I've looked at online, they have the most inclusive list of examples from different marginalized communities and groups. And then they also give you a few steps or coping skills that you might be able to look into. And the third definition of microaggression after micro-assaults and micro-insults is micro-invalidations, which is the most insidious form of a microaggression, because it's when someone tells or implies to someone that their experience of discrimination isn't real. So it's like the cherry on top of a sundae of discrimination. So a microaggression can make you feel paranoid. It can make you question your own experiential reality. Some examples would be when you tell a friend or someone who has authority and is supposed to help you solve the problem about a microaggression you just experienced, and then they tell you you're just imagining things because they know that person and that person's great. You're just reading too much into it. When someone tells you you're being oversensitive, when you're told, well, if you could just adjust your attitude and be like nicer or less aggressive, or change the way you dress or talk or walk or be, then you wouldn't have people discriminating against you like that. This one's terrible. When a person with a mental disability experiences a microaggression, but then is told that their experience was actually just a symptom of their mental illness and that it didn't really happen. When a corporation or government claims that their board of executives is all white and all male because, well, they just happen to be the most qualified. When a poor person is told to pull themselves up by their bootstraps, and actually, frankly, when anything actually that implies that the power imbalances in the world are the way they are because those on the top deserve to have all of the power and those on the bottom, that's what they just deserve. All of those are micro-invalidations, and we experience them on a macro scale. In journalism, there are times where the article is about a hate crime, but the title of the article is a micro-invalidation. And they also happen on the personal one-to-one person level. So we share this vocabulary because it helps us to more deeply understand these performances of injustice that we're experiencing so that we are then able to interrupt, disrupt, and stop them and have more performances of justice. So I look forward to you using this awesome vocabulary so you can create more of a culture of calling up.